You've been told a lie, a massive cultural deception that's left you feeling broken when you should feel normal. They've convinced you that casual sex is liberation, that hooking up without attachment is the pinnacle of modern freedom. But here you are, after another meaningless encounter, staring at the ceiling, wondering why you feel so damn empty. Let me guess what happened. You met someone attractive. The chemistry was there. You followed the script society handed you. No strings attached, just pure physical pleasure. But instead of feeling empowered, you felt hollow. Instead of satisfaction, you got anxiety. Instead of freedom, you felt trapped in a cycle that makes no sense to your mind. You're not broken. You're not prudish. You're not behind the times. You're intelligent. And that changes everything. Here's what nobody tells you. Your brain literally works differently. While others can compartmentalize sex from emotion, separate physical pleasure from intellectual connection, your neural pathways refuse to comply. Your prefrontal cortex, that highly developed thinking machine in your skull, won't shut up long enough to let you enjoy something purely physical. You crave complexity, you need patterns, you demand meaning. And casual sex offers none of these things. It's mental junk food for a brain that requires gourmet nutrition. The research is crystal clear, though culture ignores it completely. Studies consistently show that individuals with higher IQs report lower satisfaction with casual sexual encounters. They're more likely to delay sexual activity, more selective with partners, and significantly more likely to associate sexual satisfaction with emotional bonding. This isn't coincidence. This isn't cultural conditioning. This is neuroscience. Your brain produces different chemical cocktails than the average person. Your dopamine pathways are more complex. Your need for novelty is higher, but paradoxically, your need for meaningful stimulation is even greater. You can't trick your neural architecture into finding pleasure in something that lacks depth, no matter how much society insists you should. But here's where it gets brutal. You've been fighting against your own nature. You've forced yourself into situations that feel wrong because you thought something was wrong with you. You've tried to rewire your brain to want what everyone else seems to want, and you've failed every single time. Tonight, that ends. Tonight, you stop apologizing for needing more than physical gratification. You stop trying to force your intelligent mind into accepting intellectual poverty. You start honoring the way your brain actually works instead of fighting against it. Let's get into the science of why your last hookup left you feeling worse than before you started. Your brain isn't malfunctioning. It's operating exactly as evolution designed highly intelligent minds to work. When you engage in casual sex, your brain launches into overdrive, trying to process patterns that aren't there. Your anterior cingulate cortex, the part responsible for detecting discrepancies, goes haywire because it can't reconcile the intimacy of the physical act with the absence of emotional connection. This creates what neuroscientists call cognitive dissonance stress, flooding your system with cortisol instead of the feel-good chemicals you expected. Meanwhile, your highly developed prefrontal cortex refuses to shut down. While other people can lose themselves in the moment, your brain keeps analyzing, predicting, seeking meaning. You're simultaneously experiencing physical pleasure and psychological discomfort. It's like trying to enjoy a symphony while someone runs their fingernails down a chalkboard. The dopamine situation is even more complex. Intelligent brains have more sophisticated reward prediction systems. You need novelty, yes, but meaningful novelty. A random sexual encounter triggers a brief dopamine spike, but your brain quickly recognizes the lack of complexity and shuts down the reward pathway. you're left with less satisfaction than when you started. A neurochemical debt that leaves you craving more while simultaneously being repulsed by the prospect. Then there's oxytocin, the bonding hormone. Your brain produces it regardless of whether you want emotional attachment or not. But when there's no emotional reciprocity, when the person beside you is just a body rather than a mind you connect with, your oxytocin system misfires. You're chemically primed to bond with someone who has no intention of bonding back. It's psychological torture disguised as pleasure. Research from the Kinsey Institute shows that individuals with higher analytical thinking scores experience significantly more anxiety after casual sexual encounters. Their brains simply cannot process the disconnect between evolutionary bonding mechanisms and modern casual attitudes. Your neural architecture evolved to associate sex with pair bonding, emotional investment, and long-term relationship building. When these elements are absent, your brain doesn't just feel disappointed, it feels tricked. And intelligent brains hate being tricked more than anything else. The prediction error phenomenon hits you harder than most. Your brain constantly generates models of what should happen next. In meaningful relationships, sexual encounters build toward deeper intimacy, shared experiences, mutual understanding. In casual sex, there's no predictable progression, no logical next step. Your pattern-seeking mind hits a wall, generating stress instead of satisfaction. This is why you can't just turn off your brain and enjoy casual sex like others seem to. Your intelligence isn't a switch you can flip. It's the fundamental architecture of how you process every experience, especially intimate ones. Intelligence rarely comes alone. It arrives packaged with emotional intelligence, empathy, and a complex understanding of human psychology. This makes you incredibly skilled at deep connections and absolutely terrible at shallow ones. You read people. You notice micro-expressions, vocal inflections, subtle body language cues that others miss completely. During casual encounters, this hyper-awareness becomes a curse. You see through the performance, recognize the emotional walls, detect the disconnection your partner is maintaining. Instead of losing yourself in physical pleasure, you're conducting a psychological analysis of someone actively trying to avoid being analyzed. Research, published in the Journal of Research in Personality, found that individuals with higher emotional intelligence scores report significantly lower satisfaction with uncommitted sexual relationships. They literally can't turn off their ability to perceive emotional states, making casual sex feel like an elaborate act of mutual deception. Your empathy works against you here. You feel your partner's emotional distance, their psychological barriers, their determination to keep things surface level. This creates internal conflict. Part of you wants to break through those barriers and connect authentically, while another part recognizes that doing so violates the unspoken rules of casual encounters. You crave intellectual stimulation because your brain is wired to find minds attractive, not just bodies. The term sapiosexual wasn't coined by pretentious dating app users. It describes a real neurological preference found predominantly in high IQ individuals. Studies show that intelligent people's attraction centers activate more strongly in response to displays of intelligence than physical appearance alone. This creates a fundamental problem with hookup culture. It's built on the premise that physical attraction is sufficient for satisfying sexual experiences, but your brain demands intellectual compatibility, emotional resonance, and psychological depth. Without these elements, the physical component feels hollow, like trying to satisfy hunger with empty calories. Intelligent women, particularly, report feeling objectified during casual encounters in ways that have nothing to do with feminism and everything to do with neuroscience. Their brains are seeking partners who engage with their intellectual capabilities, who appreciate their complex inner lives. When sexual partners treat them as interchangeable bodies rather than unique minds, the disconnect triggers stress responses that can last for days. The vulnerability factor compounds everything. Intelligent people understand that genuine intimacy requires emotional risk, authentic self-expression, and mutual psychological exposure. Casual sex demands the opposite: emotional armor, surface-level interaction, and psychological distance. Your brain knows something is missing and won't let you forget it. You need partners who challenge you mentally, because intellectual engagement triggers the same neural pathways as romantic attraction. When someone understands your thoughts, builds on your ideas, or introduces concepts that reshape your thinking, your brain releases chemicals identical to those produced during romantic bonding. Without this intellectual component, sexual encounters feel incomplete regardless of physical technique. This isn't psychological weakness, it's cognitive sophistication. Your brain requires complexity in all areas, including intimate relationships. Accepting anything less isn't settling, it's neurological self-harm. Your intelligent brain doesn't just experience events, it weaves them into narratives. Every experience must fit within a larger story, serve a greater purpose, contribute to meaningful patterns. This is why casual sex feels so psychologically jarring. It's a chapter that doesn't belong in any coherent story. You think in timelines, progressions, and logical sequences. Meaningful relationships follow predictable patterns. Attraction leads to connection. Connection deepens through shared experiences. Deepening intimacy creates stronger bonds. Stronger bonds enable vulnerability. And vulnerability facilitates genuine love. This progression satisfies your brain's need for logical development and purposeful growth. Casual sex interrupts this narrative structure. It's intimacy without progression, vulnerability without purpose, connection without meaning. Your pattern-seeking mind can't integrate these experiences into a coherent life story, so they exist as psychological anomalies, isolated events that create more confusion than satisfaction. Research from the American Psychological Association demonstrates that individuals with higher cognitive complexity require narrative coherence in their relationships. They need to understand how each interaction contributes to a larger relational arc. Without this context, sexual experiences feel random and ultimately unsatisfying. You're also more likely to think existentially about sex and relationships. While others can compartmentalize physical pleasure as separate from life purpose, your brain automatically connects intimate experiences to bigger questions. What does this mean for my future? How does this align with my values? What kind of person am I becoming through these choices? These aren't overthinking. They're the natural operation of an intelligent mind encountering experiences that lack philosophical coherence. Your brain evolved to find meaning in complexity, and casual sex offers neither. The goal-oriented nature of intelligent thinking creates additional problems with hookup culture. You naturally think in terms of objectives, outcomes, and achievements. Meaningful relationships have clear goals: building connection, creating partnership, establishing mutual support systems, potentially building families or life partnerships. These goals justify the emotional investment and vulnerability required for satisfying intimate relationships. Casual sex has no meaningful goals beyond momentary physical pleasure. For goal-oriented minds, this makes the entire experience feel pointless. You invest emotional and physical energy without any logical return on investment. Your brain keeps asking, "What's the point?" and receiving no satisfactory answer. Studies consistently show that intelligent individuals are more likely to view sex as part of a larger life strategy rather than isolated entertainment. They make intimate decisions based on long-term compatibility, shared values, and mutual life goals. When these elements are absent, sexual experiences feel strategically meaningless, pleasant moments that contribute nothing to overall life satisfaction. This is why intelligent people often feel used after casual encounters, even when they consented enthusiastically. The usage isn't physical, it's psychological. Their complex minds were engaged in an activity that offered no intellectual or emotional return on investment. They gave more than they received because they're incapable of engaging superficially with intimate experiences. Your meaning-making mind isn't a burden. It's your greatest asset in building relationships that actually satisfy your psychological needs. The problem isn't your brain. It's trying to force your brain into accepting experiences that violate its fundamental operating principles. Now that you understand why your brain rejects casual sex, let's talk about what actually works for intelligent minds, seeking satisfying, intimate relationships. This isn't about becoming more conservative or judgmental. It's about honoring your neurological needs instead of fighting against them. First, recognize that your standards aren't too high. They're neurologically necessary. You need intellectual compatibility because your brain literally cannot separate mental and physical attraction. Stop apologizing for requiring partners who can engage with your mind as skillfully as your body. This isn't elitism, it's basic psychological hygiene. Look for partners who demonstrate intellectual curiosity, not just intelligence. Someone can be brilliant but incurious, which creates the same emptiness as casual encounters. You need people who ask questions, challenge assumptions, and show genuine interest in ideas. These individuals are more likely to bring the same curiosity and engagement to intimate relationships. Prioritize emotional availability over physical attractiveness. This doesn't mean settling for people you're not attracted to. It means recognizing that sustainable attraction for intelligent people requires emotional accessibility. Partners who are psychologically open, emotionally articulate, and willing to be vulnerable will trigger stronger and more lasting attraction than those who rely solely on physical appeal. Develop a screening process that honors your brain's needs. Before investing in romantic situations, ensure intellectual compatibility through meaningful conversations. Discuss ideas, share perspectives on complex topics, explore philosophical differences. If someone can't engage at this level, they're unlikely to satisfy your needs in intimate relationships, regardless of physical chemistry. Practice communicating your relationship requirements clearly and unapologetically. Many intelligent people hide their need for depth because they fear being labeled demanding or difficult. This backfires because it attracts partners who prefer superficial connections. Instead, be explicit about your need for emotional intimacy, intellectual engagement, and meaningful progression. Create relationship frameworks that reflect your values and cognitive needs. This might mean waiting longer before becoming physically intimate, prioritizing regular deep conversations, or establishing clear expectations about emotional availability. These aren't arbitrary rules. They're strategies for ensuring your relationships develop in ways that satisfy your psychological architecture. Learn to recognize red flags specific to intelligent people's needs. Watch for partners who avoid deep conversations seem uncomfortable with vulnerability, or show no interest in your thoughts and ideas. These behaviors predict incompatibility regardless of other positive qualities. Build intellectual and emotional intimacy before physical intimacy. Your brain requires this progression to produce satisfying sexual experiences. Rushing into physical relationships before establishing mental and emotional connections creates the same emptiness as casual sex, even within committed relationships. Understand that your relationship timeline will be different from others, and that's not a problem to solve. Intelligent people typically require more time to develop trust, assess compatibility, and build the foundation necessary for satisfying intimate relationships. Embrace this pace instead of trying to accelerate it to match cultural expectations. Most importantly, stop trying to change your fundamental psychological needs. Your brain's requirement for meaningful connection isn't a flaw to overcome. It's an asset that enables deeper, more satisfying relationships than most people ever experience. Honor it, protect it, and find partners who appreciate it. The goal isn't to have more relationships or more sexual experiences. It's to have relationships and experiences that actually nourish your intelligent mind instead of depleting it. Quality over quantity isn't just a dating preference for intelligent people. It's a neurological necessity. Your brain is capable of experiencing profound intimacy, deep connection, and extraordinary satisfaction, but only when you stop forcing it into situations that violate its fundamental operating principles. Choose partners and relationship styles that complement your intelligence instead of fighting against it. The right person will appreciate your depth, engage with your complexity, and create the kind of meaningful connection your brain actually craves. This is your path forward. Honoring your intelligence in every aspect of intimate relationships, including recognizing that casual sex simply isn't designed for minds like yours.